after in the oil and gas consulting businesses, and is currently the youngest fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I would like us to simplify this. As few as we are, we should go home with something. In the hospitality industry, what kind of dream would you dream for Akwa Ibom State? What would you want it to be like? Please.
Thank you very much. Am I right? Yes. Well, I think no need to do the protocols, but go straight to answering your question. But the answer to your question is actually a paper presentation because you're looking at Akwa Ibom Dream through the eyes of tourism. I think it's the right step for us to take. I've not been in this part of the country for quite a while. I think just about the last 2 years. But I would like to say from a tourism specialist look at our state, that is Akwa Ibom State, we are extremely well positioned to be the #1 tourist destination in the country. And I'm saying that not because I'm from this state. And I'm also saying that because there are facts that can support that. So many facts. The first fact is that we are very hospitable. I've not lived here since I came in. Everyone has been very nice to me, even though I'm from this part of the country. But I also see that this hospitality has been extended to so many other persons. We also have very good cuisine. I think we have about the best in the country, especially if you group us with the Cross Riverians, that's the Efik and Ibibio cuisine. So when you look at all that, we should then dream to be #1 in terms of tourism. This current government has done a lot. We have what is called aviation tourism, which is the only state in the country, though I know Cross River is trying to copy us, that has floated an airline, and transportation is very key to tourism. We also have a lot of natural, historical, and other things that will happen. When you get tourism right, you'll get it right in education, you get it right in medical, you get it right in industrialization, you get it right in sports, you get it right in the standard of living of people. So tourism is the way of life. It covers all aspects of our life. Thank you.
Shall we please appreciate him? Just before I go to other speakers, last year I had an amazing time in one of our beaches in this city, the Iko Beach. Do you know about it? Has anybody in this place been to the Iko Beach? Nobody. No, Iko town. You have been there, right? Around Isnobolo. That beach is massive. It is big and very beautiful. And I understand that in Akwa Ibom, we have about 70 of such beaches. Is that news to you? Now, just imagine that we have an activity that drags the rest of the state and maybe people outside the world to come and visit maybe just 10 of those beaches. We are going to round off the Christmas village. Have you been there since it started this year? Let me see your hand up. My sisters, look at them. You've been there. Are there times where you wish that it could continue? It just doesn't end in December? Do you know that if we had something built around that place and it has an entrance and an exit where people are controlled and then people have different things and that place is constantly open for business, would that not be some of the ideas you would consider?
Yes, I'm happy you talk of our beaches. Yes, we have beaches. We have God-given tourism endowments. But just like you must also point out, they need to be developed. As regards the Christmas village, is fantastic. I don't know about it being a 365-day operation. I know. You are saying it should be there all the time. For 30 days is okay. But you see, a replica of the tourism of the Christmas village, as it is done in other countries, you can look at it like the Disneyland in Paris or the one in Orlando, Florida. So it will now have content. It will have a designated maybe 10 hectares of land, and then it's going to be open throughout the year. We want to get that right. I would like to say those are some of the plans my board are trying to put in place. Just like Professor Emmanuel Omudikot said, we've got to plan. And even after we make the plan, we've got to make sure the plan is legalized. Because some of these plans cannot be done within an 8-year period. And until that is done, you can see what happened. I just must say this quickly. To our sister state, Cross River. Cross River never situated her tourism plan in a legal fashion like the professor mentioned. For instance, if it had been legalized that you must do Calabar Carnival every year, then Professor Ben Ayade would not have skipped it for 2 years. So those are the things that we've got to plan and get right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate Obong Akwa. Thank you. I'll come to you, Dr. Advocate Eshet. And I read a bit of your profile. You're an educationist and a counseling psychologist. Triple E, how is that doing? Tell us a bit about it.
Thank you. Thank you, the audience. Thank you, the moderator. Triple E Counseling Services is an outfit that is out there to promote excellence in goal attainment. It's an outfit that has to do with education and counseling in particular. And my expertise is in career counseling. We've just rounded the first year of our formal operation. Having worked for 10 years in civil service, in advertising and National Open University, so I decided to step out because I saw gaps in terms of counseling in schools and decided to go into private practice so that we will have the time to actually work at the grassroots. Like when the prof was rolling out data, those things we know. Some of the schools here, we have about secondary school that have 6,000 population. To me, that's not a secondary school, that's a polytechnic. No principal can control that kind of environment. So we are doing very well. We do a lot of programs. We work with private organizations. We work with individuals and schools to ensure that we bring about a rethinking mindset. People need to know what life is all about, what education has to be, especially as situated in the 21st century.
In working in broadcasting, that's just a borrowed profession for me. I'm actually trained as a teacher, a biology teacher. So when I saw this, I was very interested in this particular question. So many students today, and if we take statistics in this hall, we'll find people that studied one thing and are practicing the other thing. Anybody like that in this hall? Absolutely. So I'm wondering if there is a particular dream that Akwa Ibom can focus on, where citizens of this state are made to go to school and learn the things that they love, in tandem with the kind of opportunities present in our environments. Talking about preparing people for the life in their community. I'll make that simple for you to get my question, please. We're currently talking about, we now have Ibom Air. Aviation industry is getting better. We may have students who would want to get into the aviation industry, but do not know how, or do not know what it takes. We're talking about the Baka Deep Seaport, Ibom Deep Seaport coming. I remember asking the Honorable Commissioner the kind of careers that could allow our people to be fit, to be qualified to work in these places. We have the syringe industries, and of course, those ones that they are mentioning, I said they are talking about. But I don't know, do we have Akwa Ibom citizens that can fit into those places? And if we don't, what do we do?
Thank you very much. I will answer on this premise. The last point of the questions, whether we have the caliber of people that can take care of the industries and the sectors that we are developing, goes back to what the prof just presented. Data. When you don't have data, you will not be able to know who and who you have. Some days, I was talking with a colleague in my office that my fear of Akwa Ibom is that we may not get to a point that we are developing our state against our people. Because if I want to build an airport, for instance, okay, let me start from this way. A government in a state, that's why you will hear Governor ABC of a state. The primary focus of that governor is to develop his people, not to have applause from all over the world as your aim. So when you want to develop that kind of environment, the first question you have to ask is, do I have the people on ground to take care of this? If I don't have the people on ground to take care of this project, for instance, a seaport takes maybe 5 years gestation to bring on board. So within that 5 years, what do I have to do? I have to start training my people. That's what you have to do. Because the seaport will not wait for your people. The airport will not wait for your people. So what you're going to do is that if you don't have those people, you make a plan as you're starting your training. In 4 or 5 years, you have people to come on board. In 20 years, you have people to take over. Like in engineering, you have what is called build, operate, and transfer. When you enter an environment that you don't have the skills that you need, you bring in people who have the skills, but with an agreement that this is the level of manpower you need to develop along with us for the 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. So that by the time they get to that level, you can have people to take over. But we don't have that. So we have to be intentional so that we should not develop the state against our people, because that's what I'm beginning to see. Akwa Ibom is opening up so fast, but we are not upgrading the quality of our people. And so what do? We need to go back and begin to think. Draw people who have the knowledge base, our experts, home and abroad, to sit down and have a roadmap. What do we train? I was listening to one of the, with the Minister of Transport, one of the men in charge in maritime, who lamented that Nigeria as a today don't have qualified sea maintaining craftsmen, not even engineers, craftsmen. That's why every ship goes out of Nigeria to be repaired. That means 6 months ceasing operations, and those that were working on those ships will have to wait for those ships to come back. It is both an advantage and a disadvantage. It is an advantage in the sense that we are losing, but an advantage that we can begin to think and create a system to train people in that area so that we can close that gap. So as a state, we need to sit down as part of this dream. In tourism, what kind of people are we looking for? In aviation, how many pilots, like it says, we are looking for? Aeronautics engineers. Do we even have spray painters that can spray aeroplanes? These are simple things. So we need to intentionally develop them. We may not retain them 100%, but even if we have 45% of them that will step back, that is going to be a plus. That is there is no magic. Planning. And it has to be a vision. Currently, I am studying Dubai. In fact, I set up Triple E counseling services after I studied Dubai. And something struck me, the word of Sheikh Mohammed Ibn Rashid Al Maktoum. He says, I hear leaders say they don't have skills. They don't have experts. And I think those people have no right to be leaders. But in Dubai, I don't have projects. That my own problem in Dubai is that we don't have projects to showcase the level of skills that we have developed. And that thing struck a chord. The other nations are saying we don't have experts. And so what are you doing? You develop your people.
Thank you. Shall we please give him a resounding round of applause? I would say congratulations on being the youngest fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Did that happen in the just concluded conference in Abuja? The one before that one. Okay. So quickly before I get onto the role of youth in governance, as an engineer, and your experience seems to be international. You have experienced Nigeria and a bit of the other world. And today they say that if government comes together with the engineers, that they could fix our power problem. As an engineer, what would you say?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I would say, you see, the power problem is something that I've been very much involved in advising, especially with the gas value chain, talking about very instrumental to some of the gas terms that were written out for the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act, that has now been passed. So, the gas, especially we did a lot of research on gas to power, right? There are a number of problems that sort of affects the viability of realizing gas to power, for example. The skill set is just a little bit of the problem. Other problems are things like the funding. Other problems are things like non-payment from customers. And then the other problem then is when you generate your own power beyond a certain level, you have to send it to the central grid. So there's a number of problems, but just speaking to the technical one that you were talking about. Yes, there are a number of innovations that engineers can come up with to solve the problem of power. I like to tell people that I try not to pitch a tent between what we say cleaner energy or fossil energy, or greener energy or fossil energy. The reason is because I do not see an energy mix that will do without fossil energy. Yeah, but what I see is the cleaner renewable energy serving a decentralized system where there is no central grid. And especially maybe the rural areas. You could set up, so the rural areas, for example, they may have a small demand of power. They may have, they just have their own unique setting and they need power scattered around, depending, maybe if they're using it on the farms or little industrial hubs that they're using to process farm produce. And that's where I think the real genius of being an engineer is, where you can craft out a non-centralized electricity system and supply to those people who need it. Coming to town for them is just for the basic amenities. And if you can provide it, then perhaps you could give them some of the imperatives required to begin to develop those areas. So I think engineers, very much from a renewable standpoint, can put up together some decentralized grids to feed those rural areas and then create the power that we need for some of the important industrial stuff that go on in those rural areas. Thank you.
Okay. Prince Akandot gave me a topic to talk with you, and I absolutely love it. I'll make all of you listen to it because it concerns you too much. The role of the youth in governance, policy implementation, and proposing a platform for the youth inclusiveness. This is a topic that all of us here will have to talk about. Thankfully, an old adage says that to build a city, that you need the wisdom of the elders, like we have here, and the strength of the young, like we have here. So, few or many, we are complete. what can young people do so that their voices are heard in government, on policy making table, and maybe even on the table where implementation is discussed? What can young people do? And I would love this in the most practical terms possible. Listen, guys.
I try. Okay. I'll start out by quoting John F. Kennedy. And, the quote says, ask not what your country should do for you. And I'll say in this case what Akwa Ibom should do for you, but what you should do for Akwa Ibom State. And the reason I say that at the backdrop of, so when I set out earlier on in my life, I dared to be different. My mentor, who is a friend, we worked together, Barrister Udeminoyo, we used to work together. He would describe me with 3 words. He would say, you're bullish, you are bold, and you're fearless. And the 3 words was basically because I dared to be different. I wanted to be different. I wanted to, first and foremost, I had a fantastic idea about what the youth needed to look like. But the problem was that there was no one actually doing it. I remember walking up to a vice chancellor then of a university, and I said, could you kindly include me in the sponsorship of a PhD? And then we had to come back and lecture. And then he said, how old are you? I said, I'm 21. He said, go do something with your life. Go get experience. What are you doing with PhD at 21? But I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. What I wanted to do, I remember my PhD graduation, my mother said to me, so what now? I said, the only thing I want is not really the certificate, is to graduate with the gown. And she said, 4 years to graduate with the gown? And I said, yes. The point is, I knew I could have a career with my enthusiasm and the knowledge I had at the time and some contacts. I could have a career without a PhD. It was really a legacy type of thing, to send the message home to young people that if you can dare to dream, you can dare to achieve. So it was never about me. And so for me, I was tired of thinking about ideas that people thought were alien. And I said to myself, I think I'll probably die before these ideas are materialized. And I need to now come and be the person to actualize them. That was what I set out to do. So I thought to myself, God wanted to save the world. He thought about the most practical way to do it. He had to send his own son. So I said to myself, wisdom, you are going to go out there, you're going to prove to people that it could be done. And when I tell people, the young people that care to listen, number one goal to setting the imperative for good governance and being heard is by achieving excellence. That is the first step. What I tell people, you cannot, I am tired of seeing, so I was at the Nigerian International Petroleum Summit, and it was quite laughable because I saw elected officers and appointed officers from this state, and I'm not even known in the state anyway. I saw them trying to get access to the Minister for Petroleum, and I saw them trying to get access to the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board Chairman. Executive Secretary, who's my very good friend. And while they were struggling at the corridor trying to get his attention, I said, what's going on? I know you guys, what's going on? They're like, we're trying to get this man's attention, but we can't seem to get it. And they said, do you know him? I said, oh, of course, he's my friend. Let's go talk to him. And I took them there and did the icebreaker. Now, the point I'm trying to make is this. You need to, why did I get probably the listening ear of a minister when we couldn't get it from elected officers here? It's because I had made it a port of call to distinguish myself and gain their respect. I understood, and I keep telling every forum I go to, the future does not belong to those with the muscle of the arm, but those with the muscle of the brain. It's what I tell the young people that care to listen. if you want to command respect, I mean, with my big size, I started out actually as a young child being a bully. If you called me Fatih Bom Bom, I would hit you. But here was the point. My father saw how very invested I was in my energy and thought, frankly, I was putting my energy the wrong way. So what he did was to force me to begin to learn the 2 times table, up to the 12 times table at the time. But what that did for me was this. I came into class one very blessed day after cramming for 2 weeks. And whenever they draw a box and put 2 times a box is equal to 24, I would simply mention the answer. But what I realized was that people began to have respect for me based on my knowledge and not based on my physical powers. And that was the game changer. That is exactly when I decided that, okay, it is going to be first step, chase knowledge. Second step, improve my imagination. Because Albert Einstein says, imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Sorry. No. But here's what I have to say to the young people. Now, I've told you how I set myself as an example. What I have to say to the young people is first, what are the imperatives of governance as you have set it to be? That's the very first thing. Now, how you're clamoring for inclusion and to be heard, but who are your representatives? I like to tell people, you must separate the conquerors from the guys that are implementing governance. We have history has told us. I mean, if you want to look at the fictional standpoint, you look at the story of Animal Farm, where they clamored to conquer and couldn't rule. You want to look at history, you also look at some of the things that have led to the fall of empires, like in the Genghis Khan. They were good conquerors, but not leaders. So I tell young people, if you're advocating for leadership, make sure you put your best foot forward. You cannot bring a guy who is known to cause problems on the street and terrify people, and you want to bring him to the governance table and you expect to be listened to. You want to bring someone with an antecedent who has achieved and who can be listened to. I'd like to end my I'm not very good in Igbo, but I think there's a saying that says, "Nwata kwọcha aka." It says when you, I think there's another translation to it, but it loosely translates to, when you wash your hands well, you can dine with the kings. And that's what I encourage all young people to do. Thank you very much.
I think we should do better in that club. Indeed, you've raised a lot of points, and I wish I had a mic in the audience. I would like to hear from people. Is there a mic in the audience there? Please. Otherwise, I would just come down. This is it. In this fall, I believe we are less than maybe 20 or about that. I would like us to channel our conversations to these people here, which is why I want to know what each and every one of us is doing. Because when you say chase knowledge and then be excellent at it, we need to tell someone how to chase and what knowledge to chase. Because it's different for all of us. There could be a cook in here. There could be a fashion designer in here. There's someone that does business of jewelries in here. So I think it is different. So I'm going to give this mic to you. Okay.
Sorry, I thought your question was how the youth can affect governance, isn't it? Generally. Which topic are you talking about? Well, let somebody else answer. I want to stress on governance being changed by the youth. I think, to me, that's more important. You see, why it's more important is that whether you like it or not, and I must still say this to the youth, you can go to all the school you need to go to, get all the skills you need to get. But if you don't get governance, we are still going to be where we are here in Nigeria. Now, there's something going on WhatsApp where there is, I think, a northerner and a southerner, and they said, what will you take? I think somebody said either education and money, and then the other one had a gun. So the other guy took a gun and used the gun to collect the wealth from the other person. And so what that tells us is that in today's democracy, we must get governance. We must be in charge before our ideas can come into fruition. A lot of us have suffered that. For the youth, this is what I have said in all the times I've talked to so many of them, sometime in several hundreds. The first thing I've told the youth are this: the youth need to know who they are. They need to know they form 70% of our population. They need to know they have the power. Once the youth know that, the next thing is to come together. The third thing after coming together is now to look for those who are brainy amongst them. And then we must do things correctly. I think one of the professors mentioned legislation. You see, I look at the television. Every time the youth say they are not taken into consideration, they say the old people have spoiled the future for them and so on and so forth. And I ask the youth, what are you doing to make sure you can get these things corrected? Now, one of the most important things, and I think I went on national television to talk on that, was when the youth successfully got the government or the National Assembly to legislate and reduce the ages for people to aspire to positions. I think they reduced the age you can become a president, the age you can become a senator, House of Rep member, governor, and all of that. And then I got a gathering of the youth, and I said, look, you've just got one small aspect of the job done. Why did I say so? Look, even if you reduce the age to be the president to 18, it will not stop an elderly person like our chairman for today, who has amassed more experience, more wealth. You can't stand with an 81-year-old man cannot stand with an 18-year-old man and compete. And so what did I tell the youth? You should have done a two-pronged legislation. You would have got the ages reduced and also make it mandatory that a certain percentage of elective offices are kept for the youth. And that is why today, a country like Rwanda have in their legislative house, they have, out of all the legislative houses, I think in the whole world, they currently have like 53 to 54% female. And that is just because of the legislation that gave women 50% equality. So if you want youth to be relevant in the governance, they should not only reduce those ages, but they must fight collectively and be represented in government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the role of the youth, what's your opinion?
Yeah, thank you. Just like the two speakers have said, the youth forms the nexus between the current dispensation and the next. And that is very, very important. But that as it may, for the fact that we are young people in that gap does not mean that power will just necessarily on its own drop into our laps. So what are we to do as young people? We have to think constructively. And to do that, we have to know what future are we talking about. The leadership position that we want to take. What am I bringing to the table as a young person? In the first place, do I even have self-leadership? The young people, are we able to lead ourselves? Are we able to submit our own desires and instincts for speed, to the point that we can manage it and make sure that we have something tangible out of it. So the first thing, we have to have a vision, we have to be led right, and we have to think sustainably. We don't just think the gratification of just that power. Have we gotten the experience from good followership to plan, so that when you have that position, because it's not about the position, it's about what is in you. That position only reveal whether you are able to take it on. So it's not about the age, it's about the mindset. Yeah.
I was going to ask this question. If the age is reduced, do we have young people here that can fit into those positions? Interacting with the young people here, I'm not sure how long you've been around. Do you think that the crop of young people we have here can sufficiently lead this country if the opportunity is handed them, not like it would be handed?
All over Nigeria, we have sufficient quantities of capable, responsible, extra-educated young persons. All of us sitting here, I got my first degree, I wasn't 21 years old. And we were well situated to take responsibilities. And that has not changed. What has changed is what I was saying. Are you given the opportunity to be in government? You must create the dynamics to make that a possibility before you can start any kind of discussion. Look, I will tell you one thing today. In any state in Nigeria, even at the local government levels, there is no young person who can come out on his own merit and take any of these positions. It's been taken over by the elderly people, by the wealthy people, because unless you have a law that can protect them, it's that same law that we talked of, the law that stopped apartheid. Just because you're black, you can't be in a distance. The law that stopped slavery. These laws have to come in place as well. Because when the laws were there, it didn't mean that there were no black persons in South Africa who had equal capability intelligently like the whites. It didn't mean that when we are slaves, the slave is not even better exposed than the slave master. But the laws come in. So the same thing applies to our youth. We have many of them. And I'm also tired of, in Nigeria, you know, when we had the last PDP convention at Abuja, the youth president was representing the PDP, was somebody below 30 years old. And, you know, we were making a fuss about it. Why? In other climates, very young persons are leading. I think there's a country in one of these European countries, I don't know if it's Sweden, Norway, or Denmark. There are young ladies, all of them below 40. The Prime Minister is below 40. The Minister of Education, the Minister of this. So please, we have those people in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll just add a little bit to that topic. Yes, the answer is, I agree with him, there are young people. And I will say with reasons. If you look at the last 15 years, the corporate boardrooms have moved from very old people to very young people, led by tech and the banking sector. So I can tell you that. Now let me tell you some of the problems that are stopping young people from getting involved in, the qualified sort of young people from getting involved in good numbers. Number one is human capital flight. Everybody thinks I am mad, that I had everything in the world that could have led me to be in the UK. By the time they had wanted to get me to stay in the UK and got me an offer as a research associate, I declined. Everybody think I'm mad if I'm not chasing the Canadian visa, but I decide to stay here. But it's the courage of conviction that I've got, that I can make a difference here, that has made me stay. No, I don't regret it at all. I don't. Because upon graduating, I did my self assessment. I remember in the workshop when your PhD supervisor says, "Congratulations, your examiner, you're now a doctor." And yeah, you feel so good. And he said, "What next?" And I said, "Maybe I'll go back." He said, "I think you should. We've got a lot of experts here, you won't make a difference here. Go back, solve a problem, carve a niche, be very intentional about it, and you'll probably make a difference, and then in the sands of time you cast your name." The second thing that worries me, and I say this with with a lot of worry, is the political ideologies. The reason I say that is this. I thought as a teacher, just for voluntary purposes, in a school called Beach and Cliff in the UK, in Somerset. I've also been in the US and I've done some teaching program as well. If I talk to a youth there, or even a child, and I'm crazy enough to ask, as a political party, yes, in our constitution, the political parties are the vehicles within which we can, institute governance. But that doesn't stop us from having some ideologies. That doesn't stop us from doing things differently. Because the same reasons why you find out, and the oil companies are finding out why they're losing young people to tech, is exactly what is happening to politics. When you are nothing innovative, nothing ideological, then you just have human capital flights. They go somewhere else. They're not going to bother. Let me shock you. I belong to a very strong WhatsApp group. Now, social media is around. WhatsApp groups are in. Two groups. We have Oil and Gas Perspective and African Oil and Gas Report, very strong group. The second group, really kind of close to home, is the Ibom Connection. I was terrified at the amount of young people. One of them is the Vice President Africa for Visa. The card that you use, he's an Akwa Ibomite. I didn't know they exist. One of them is an MD and a founder of a microfinance bank. I didn't know they exist. And I'm asking them, today they saw this thing on my profile and they say, "Well done, you're going to be speaking there. But I think you've made us ashamed that we're not coming back home to add that value. But can you set the tone? Can you create a path so that we may come in?" Because they are hungry to come in. But as he said, without giving them the right thing, you need to understand we young people are very impatient. We don't have the patience. Thank you.
Before we get to the audience to take questions, I would give you one minute to bring your points home, because we've spent almost all day here and it's time to run soon. So in 1 minute, bring home your points and a call to action, so that as these people leave this place today, they have in mind that they are to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Thank you.
Yes, let me just address skill acquisition. Over the years, I was struggling to turn the 10th anniversary hotel, which the chairman referred to. I struggled to make it a hotel school. I discussed that with His Excellency, the former governor, but several times. And what I wanted was, we had the 10th anniversary hotel as the school, and then as the hotel, we add a school to it. And right now, I'm also on that struggle again. I'm trying to bring hotel management, hospitality, and tourism management to be taught even at our state university. So my take home is this. We must walk the talk. I've been struggling myself to walk the talk, and I want to get it right and get our youth prepared. It's one thing to sit down and say Akwa Ibom State should be the #1 tourism destination in Nigeria. But like all of us have said, do you have the manpower to match such a dream? Thank you.
A round of applause to him, please. Thank you.
Thank you. My final word is very simple. It's for us to be intentional about our state as a people, both at the governance level, the followership, and most especially we the young people that connects the two, the elderly and the generation coming. Like we all said, we have everything it takes to lead well. First of all, we have to lead ourselves, set our priorities right, and think beyond the confines of the state. We have to think globally, because now all of us, we have to aspire to be global citizens. And by so doing, it is very easy that when we get to the point to actually do that, we can exemplify what we have. So develop ourselves and then connect, synergize. And this is one of the things we are doing today, to synergize. And after this, we carry it forward. And before you know it, it will happen.
Thank you. For me, I think just summarizing everything that we've all said, I would say we need to be very intentional as with regards to the value that we bring to the table. Because I'm of the belief that Akwa Ibom, the value of Akwa Ibom State is an aggregate of all the value we individually bring. So the clarion call is for each of us to be very intentional about that value. Now the second thing for me is, as all of us have unanimously agreed, we need a master plan. It is a sequel to this master plan that is probably signed into law or mechanized in some sustainable way, that we can then set KPIs. Without those KPIs, you can't even, what do you use to compare one manifesto to the other? That's the truth. There are no foundational basis for that comparison. The second struggle I have is that I see people quote a lot of bogus projects that they would do. And then when I begin to ask some fundamental economic questions like what's our debt burden, what's incoming, what's your worst case pessimist model projections for what's incoming, maybe what's your benchmark for your price of oil, basically, and what's coming, and what's your capital project and OPEX spending, I then find out that there's a lot of loopholes. It's just a white elephant. So I think we need to get that KPI set, and we need to have an integrated approach to solving problems. You and I, just each on an individual level, is not going to solve a problem, but we need to integrate it and make sure that we are putting up the best we can to solve the problems that we're facing today. Thank you very much.
Is there a question in the audience? Is there anyone here with a question, please? Raise your hand before we wrap it all up. Of all the things that you've heard today, is there one you would like to be more clarified on? Okay, that means that you've all done a good job, and I'd like to thank you very much for being here. Shall we? Thank you so much for being part of that session.